always is with everything that they fucking do. So like, there's no way to escape it with the output that they produce.
A coin,
What I know is with Amazon, they have these diversity rules and they have all these rules about, for example, a certain percentage of the cast and crew need to be of all these different identity groups.
Divines bless you.
A certain percentage
May the ground you walk
to be
quake as you
to
pass.
women, and they have all these rules. Like, you can go and look them up. They're on Amazon Studios' website. And I was reading through them and thinking, my God, like, if even a really good writer would seriously struggle to write something that was compelling and
you know you can
with all
afford a
these
septim or two.
limitations, because this really hamstrings the writing. There is so much that you can and can't do. And
Yeah,
I don't know if that
what you're
was the case
producing
with
then
BBC.
isn't art. It's art within the framework of propaganda.
Yeah, it's an extremely restrictive framework. I know that Amazon Studios has that on paper, and like I say, you can read it on their studio website. I don't know if the BBC have it written down in the same way, or if it's just sort of the unspoken reality.
I'm sure they have it written down. Whether you'd have access to it without a Freedom of Information request is probably a different thing. But I'm sure they have it somewhere. But like, you can find the Oscars
Fletching
one.
suits
It's
me.
literally on
It's
the
difficult
internet.
and sometimes tedious,
literally find it
but a
within a
well-made
Google
arrow
search.
strikes forth
It's
like
not as
the
if this
fury
is-
of a god.
I think the issue comes down to whether it's just as much as, is this a limitation which is put on people voluntarily, so it's like, well, you can write within this kind of bounds, or is it so ingrained within the industry that it's no longer just a voluntary limitation or just a fact of life? Like, we can no longer hire the best actors for the role. We have to hire people within this very specific group. You have to remember, in Doctor Who, there is literally a line of Donna saying that her daughter can't act. Like, that's actually in the episode.
I love that line.
That's
so
all you need,
messy.
Dragonborn.
You can't act and I don't know how
But it's
to
also
act.
true,
I don't
right?
think it was
It is
intended
also
to be
true.
clearly, but yeah. I think well, I guess it goes back to that saying they had about the Soviet Union, where it's like after a while they didn't have to censor people because people censored themselves, and I think it's probably the same with the industry. It's probably tacitly acknowledged amongst all the writers, all the actors, all the creatives that if you don't say the right things and put the right things into
Welcome
your
to the
scripts,
center of the world.
you're probably not going to get many job
Not my
offers.
problem.
And so they just do it because it helps them to fit in. And whether they really believe it or whether it's just a necessary evil that they go through, ultimately it doesn't matter. The output's the same.
I think you need to keep in mind, as much as it could be like mandates from the higher ups that are making a lot of these things happen, I think that they were desperate to get RTD, and that him bringing back Davros as Davros is seen and everything else would have been fine with the BBC. I doubt they put on him that you can't be having a wheelchair piss, blah, blah, blah. I think that was all him, and I think that the crazy sci-fi mechanics related to trans people, women versus men stuff, I'm pretty sure that's all RTD as well. I doubt the BBC said you need to make it in Doctor Who that women have the power to release power because men can't, you know what I mean? It's like, that's getting into the weeds of like the writing in the episode. They would have happily like mandated more time for women and maybe representation for trans people and acknowledgement of them in universe or something like that. I could buy that. I don't buy that like they forced him to do any of the crazy shit, and we've heard him defend it.
The only thing that makes me dubious
Take a look.
is his face when they go, you would never understand that as a male presenting Time Lord, because that is the face of somebody who's been beaten down to destruction. And it's just like, what on earth is going on? That is not a happy face. That is a miserable, what is happening to my life kind of face. And in any other situation, I'd be more than willing to accept that Tennant had just gone along with all of it. But like, he looks really miserable in that scene. And so I don't know what caused it.
I mean, in both cases, Tennant and Russell T Davies, you can find interviews going back well before they were both attached to the new Doctor Who again, where they're pushing pretty much exactly the same points as they're pushing in the episode. Russell T Davies was giving some awards speech, I think 3 years ago, when he was preaching about LGB without the T is literally murder. And David Tennant was going on about how cringe and awful all the fans who criticize trans people are. I think these are things that these, as Muller was saying, I think they do genuinely believe it, and this was there because it was a positive artistic decision to have it in there, as opposed to it being mandated from on high. Quotas don't tend to be particularly discriminating, ironically.
But put it this way, maybe I was suggesting that it was more Tennant's wife.
Let me ask you this: do you think that this? One thing that struck me when I was watching this whole episode was, you know, this is really passé. This kind of feels like a cowboy movie released in the mid '70s. It's like, really, man? You know, you're you're arriving a little bit late to the party here, and it's the kind of thing you would have seen really common 3 or 4, even 5 years ago. But now everyone looks at it. Everyone knows what's going on. They know exactly. They've seen all the cliches. They know that he's pushing the message. Like Drinker, in your video, you mentioned that even the BBC are calling it. They said this is just being used to push the message. And I look at this, and it does kind of feel like an old guy whose politics have grown very, very stale, and doesn't realize that what he's doing has become really cliched and passe, and everyone could see it.
I think they've obviously done to death the whole
anytime.
like female empowerment thing with the previous Doctor. They've tackled racism quite a few times. I think, you know, transgenderism is probably the only big hot topic issue that they still haven't fully taken on with Doctor Who. And it seems like, well, this is your very first episode of your new run, and you're just going in hard on this stuff. You know, it makes me wonder, like, what's left in terms of big social justice issues.
There'll be a new one. There's always a new one.
Well, we've done environmentalism. We've had. Yeah.
I don't know, because if you look at what he said, Russell T Davies said this one is supposed to be the kid-friendly episode.
I'm a little busy at the
It's
moment.
perfectly possible
I've got all sorts
that
of
this was
errands
the
to
one
run.
where they like sledgehammered everyone over the face. It was meant for kids, so it was just like blunt, so that everyone could understand what was going on. And then the later ones, we tail off, and then it's more like nuanced for a more adult, like it's meant to convince adults rather than children. And I actually think that'll be really interesting to see how they go on, because we're not going to know until it happens. But if they dial everything back, it will literally be an admission that we were only so obvious because we thought we could get away with it with kids. Whereas when it actually came to an adult audience, we decided to dial it back because we know you're more intelligent, and so we had to take it a different route with you.
You have got so much more faith in the BBC's perception of the British public
no,
than I do.
No, it's
Like,
not faith.
Take
it
a
is
good look around.
Machiavellianism.
I'm sure
It
you'll
is-
find
it is-
something
I
you're looking for.
honestly
If not, let me
interpret
know.
their attitude
I
towards
might have it stored.
normal
Why,
people in
hello,
Britain
here to
as
buy. If you
attention
have to ask the
peasants.
price, you
We're
might
about
be
to
in the
tell
wrong
you
store.
what to think. Now you just
Breeches,
be quiet
gowns,
and
clothes for any
absorb our
occasion, really.
knowledge.
Something I read about his what he'd said about the future episodes. So I saw that little like promo where it's on some kind of space station. Don't know. It seems to be just Tennant and Donna. Oh, sorry, and Tate. And I was like, okay, if this and there's like screaming and dark corridors and stuff, I was like, if this is a horror episode with just those two, and they get to talk a lot about their history and the state of the current Doctor and what's going on, and that it's actually like genuinely scary, I was like, maybe this will be a quote unquote good episode. But I saw the comments about it. He was like, no, it's not going to be like, it's not going to be scary. It's going to be weird. I was like,
They've said it's going to be weird, and they do stuff to kids. Is his description of it.
So yeah, my faith in the potential for RTD Doctor Who is fucking plummeted. It's at the core of the earth at this point.
That was Doctor Who.
I think that's the worst
anyway.
thing. It is so easy. This would be so easy to get right. And I think that's my problem with everything from Marvel to everything else. It is so easy to do this correctly. People aren't even asking for anything astronomical or out there or like really pushing the cutting edge of anything. It is the basics of writing that people are asking for. And you can't even do that.
Do you think at the moment they're going through a period of experimentation with all these different franchises of how much political messaging can we shove into it before people rebel?
Yes,
so okay, we'll dial it back a little bit for the next one, and we'll see how people accept that. Because ultimately, the more of that stuff you put in, the more it impairs your ability to tell a good story.
I don't think they're organized enough to do that. Like, they don't have the organization abilities to turn around and say, well, how far can we push this? Should be this far, this far. They're not organized. They're not. It's just a mess. When you actually look at the cultural landscape, you look at the identity hiring and the diversity hiring. For example, in the Marvels, they had to hire Nia DaCosta for that because she was a woman. And you can't have a man directing it because it's a movie about women. That's their policy. I don't know if that's an official policy, but that's certainly the unofficial, unspoken policy around these movies at Marvel. Things like that, and you end up with these hack directors who are making all of these very basic mistakes. And as for the extent of the politics, a lot of that, I suppose, would be executive oversight and editing. So you take the finished product, and then the executives might think, we'd like to keep the part where like the disabled guy in a wheelchair confesses his love to the trans kid or something, but we're gonna have to edit that out because it's a little bit too far. maybe, but I think it's the cultural landscape is just such a mess at the minute. And like you were saying earlier, Drinker, people are censoring themselves, writers are censoring themselves. The reason, I mean, Disper, you were just asking, well, this is so easy, and it is easy. Like, you could very easily, I'm sure, you know, anyone here could very easily make a very good Star Wars movie or a very good episode of Doctor Who. The problem is the cultural landscape will not permit that right now.
Yeah, but why, right? It comes down to, for me anyway, my theory has always been the values involved. What people want from an entertainment series, it's not just I want to escape from reality, it's I want something to make me feel something, and you only feel something which actually replicates your kind of value system within a story. So like what we have now is a lot of essentially evil people trying to pretend to be good people, and then they're wondering why the audience don't like associate with the evil people that's supposed to be good. And I think what you get with this kind of stuff is I don't think they're capable of writing good stories because of that, because they have no idea how to do it. They don't understand the values of the audience. They can't even, it's physically impossible for them to understand the values of the audience. They come from an entirely different point of view, an entirely different moral system, and so anything they put will essentially be seen by the audience as evil, which is why.
Wait,
like,
you're that new bard.
I will watch Doctor Who.
That was a
I will
good
watch
bit
Doctor
of
Who
work.
and see Meep as the good guy, and they have no idea why.
Yeah.
And they can't even understand from
Let's
an
see if we
ironic
can't
point of
find
view
an outfit
why I could
that suits
possibly
you.
think that.
Yeah, I mean, I did a 30-minute video analyzing Galadriel as a villain, like unironically, and it works perfectly. Like, it just worked because she is a villain, but they didn't realize that. They thought she was a heroic character in Ring
Do you
of Power.
remember? Because on that note, because you said you did a video on the Marvels, right? Like,
Finally.
Carol is she's like seen as she's seen as a horrifying villain by many Kree, like, and justifiably so. She burst onto their planet and destroyed their life support systems, and then started a civil war that she abandoned.
And didn't fix it, even though she had the power to restart the
Oh,
sun.
that's
a villain. That's a bad guy,
gowns,
and it
clothes
comes
for
back
any
again
occasion,
to
really.
Captain Marvel, the first of her movies, where she is a member of the Kree that has been told a lie and that forced essentially into a particular position.
Thank
She
the
realizes,
gods for the end of
not
yet
just
another
too late that
pointless
all right,
conversation.
there's something I can do about it. Then she realizes, like, the Kree are bombing Earth. You got to stop them. And it's like, okay, compare her approach to that, having to kill all of these people who may very well have been just as lied to as she was just hours ago, or a day ago, whatever. And she's saying, woo, when she kills them. She's really happy. Compare that to Mission Impossible Fallout, where Ethan is thinking about the mission he's got to do with, like, the bad guys, so to speak, and he might have to kill police. And he's thinking about it, and they like start to like fade out the sounds, the gunshots and the screaming and stuff, and it's just like somber music, and he's just staring at the bodies, sort of thing. And it's just like the recognition, the difference, the understanding of what's happening. But the people who wrote Captain Marvel have no idea what's happening. They're like, this is great. She's killing all the bad guys. Isn't that cool?
not,
You
let
like
me know.
really big, cool, special
Huh?
firepower,
Hello,
big
I'm Gisley.
superheroes.
But you
Right?
can just call me Erica's sister. What do you need?
No, but it comes from
bit of
that's
this
the
and a
power of
bit of
being a
that.
simple-minded moron when it comes to writing stories. Like, you don't even have to think about these moral conundrums. You can just breeze right past it and just go like, haha, good guy kill bad guy. Good.
Also,
So,
watch
yeah.
Mission Impossible Fallout. It's great.
It is very great, yeah.
Mm.
Should we
Come
do a
back to
quick
bits and pieces.
the Marvel's box office watch to see what the current
Anytime.
tallies are?
Just to cheer everybody up after that discussion about Doctor Who.
It's
Drinker.
currently sitting at 187.8 million worldwide. The domestic is 77.5 million, and the international gross is 110 million. And that is it. It's
Welcome
probably
to
not
the
even going to
center
get
of
to
the
100 million domestic.
Like
by
that
the end of the
recent
run.
Monday is the funny one
We
to
can
me.
get it done.
Monday it made a whopping $339,000 at the box office. Tuesday, 495,000. So it's going up. It's going up.
Do we have how much per cinema? Those are always fun.
You
Oh,
should
they
see
are.
me
You
when
can
I
actually
get
average
bored,
them out to see how
stranger.
many people
Yeah,
are sitting per screen,
on
and
Monday,
it's like
the
3
average per
people per screening.
on Monday the average per cinema was $110.
When the Stone Folks took
Good job,
Solitude,
Disney.
I thought for sure things would
There's like
slow
4
down.
tickets.
Take a look.
That's insane. It's funny. We find it so funny, but like it's exactly as we expected it to go, kind of. Like
It's
it's
worse.
like, yeah, this is
I
what
mean, did
happened.
anyone expect it to be like this low? Because
From what I gathered,
No,
no.
no.
I don't think
low.
we had
Like, this
predictions
is-
running from
this
the past
is-
2 years, and none of us went this low. I think
Yeah, this is
Waller,
unprecedented.
Waller was probably the lowest actually. He said 350, and I
Yeah,
laughed at
we
him and
thought it
said,
was
"Look,
funny
never
because
go that low."
350. Like,
Is
so
it currently on track to be the biggest box office bomb of all time?
It might be relative to budget, yes. So
It'll be up there,
it's,
Yeah, I
it's
think
not
that's
even.
relative to budget.
It's dubious at this point. I assume it will hit 200 million, but it potentially might not.
Didn't Mortal
Um,
Engines have a record at one point, or did The Flash beat that? Because that was an expensive movie.
I
The
imagine
Flash was
is-
expensive, but I think its tally wasn't as bad as this.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure I read that the Marvels is worse, much
Return.
worse.
Yeah,
probably.
this is
Time
worse
you
than the
need
Flash.
arms
I'm
or
just not sure
armor.
about Mortal
My
Engines. whatever
forge never
backdrop.
rests.
Yeah, I just remember Mortal Engines being one of the biggest ones of all time.
They're interesting because this kind of ties into a recent statement that Bob Iger made regarding the Marvels. Actually, apparently it suffered from a lack of supervision on the set.
Oh,
for
I hate
Bob
this.
Iger.
I really hate this.
It
Like,
needed more studio
No,
interference.
no.
That was the problem.
it
This-
is the
this
idea.
for-
48 edits
the-
weren't enough. They needed to do 58 edits. That would have saved it.
This gets even better, right? Let's spin the wheel of excuses and see where we end up. Because this time around, it's so Disney CEO Bob Iger said at the New York Times Dealbook Summit, following the Marvels flopping at the box office, that there was a lack of supervision on the set as a result of the COVID pandemic. Because we're still blaming things on COVID, I guess. And I think Donald Trump is probably in there somewhere as well,
Probably.
as a reason why it failed.
You
But
just want to
yeah,
like, you just want to have like a camera on him, but he's like it's almost sad, and like he's unshaven, got a bottle of alcohol. He just goes, "It was shit, okay? It was shit. I know it was shit. You know it was
just
shit."
admit it.
Like,
No, but he took it over. Like, he was the one that fired the previous guy, took it over, and was like, yeah, I'm gonna save everything. You know that he saw himself as like riding in on cavalry horseback to save Disney from the previous guy, and he's like, no, actually, no, I'm gonna have to throw that guy under the bus. And that, like, he's still doing that, but that guy is only gonna throw under the bus for so long before you actually have to take the repercussions of your own actions. The idea, like the simple idea that you think a movie can be saved by oversight, that, do you even understand how stupid that is? Like, these writers will write something that is absolutely horrendous that no one will want to watch, but then an executive somewhere will come in and just go, by the way, if you change these 5 things, then everyone will love it. Like, no, obviously an executive can't save a terrible movie. The person that needs to be fired is the people writing the movie, the people directing the movie, and anybody who hired the writers and directors of the pissing movie that sucked so hard that no amount of executive oversight would save it. And yet,
I mean,
they're gonna go do it.
I would posit to you that it is theoretically possible an executive could look at a failing project and say, nope, we've got the wrong people attached to this one. We do need to interfere, and we're going to change things up. We're going to get a different director, or we're going to get different writers in to fix it. Like, I think Ike Perlmutter apparently was quite useful in that regard, of keeping the MCU on track and finding the right people to direct their movies. So it can theoretically work. It's just that, yeah, as a general principle, I would agree. Studio executives are not creatives, and so they're not the right people to direct the course of a movie.
If those people could entirely write what was created before them and just immediately just go, this is all trash, I need to start from scratch, then yes, because it's essentially you beginning from their own creation. But from everything that I've heard, the way these movies are written is you get hired to do a specific thing, and everything else is already set in stone. And so you have to write towards an action scene, or you have to write towards this. And so nobody actually has entire creative control. Everybody's trying to fill in the gaps for somebody else that's already planned something else. It's a bit on a conveyor belt. I don't think that works at all. And I think when it comes to this entire creative thing is, look, the amount of times I've seen somebody create a terrible movie, and at this moment specifically, I'm thinking of Taika Waititi, and then just gets promoted to something else.
When I was a young
despite the
rascal,
fact that he's
I broke a man's arm with a single punch.
Is
I
so
had a horseshoe
astronomical
hidden in my glove.
that nobody in Hollywood seems to care about somebody else's prior record.
Yeah, I guess that's probably the point. Is that I'm not of the school of thought that says that studio interference and things can never save a movie. But if the studio and the executive had made the right decision in the first place, they wouldn't be in a position where they need to make more interventions. To
Are
make
you
the
my
film
gallant
work.
hero? Have you come
There
to
are interviews
whisk me
now
away
finally
into
starting to
my
come out for the Marvels because I'm still working on my video for that one. So you can now find Nia DaCosta, for example, talking to, I think it was Collider, and being asked which her favorite of all the MCU films was, or which one inspired the Marvels. And the one she said that was one of the best MCU films, Iron Man 3. And if I'm hiring someone, and I'm sitting there and I would ask them as like Bob Iger or whoever is in charge of Marvel, I'd say, what was your favorite Marvel film? And if someone told me Iron Man 3, I would not be giving them the job.
Do you think she even watched Iron Man 3? Or was it just like, let's just name
she
a
did,
movie
she
that
said
I know
it influenced it in practical effects terms as well, because that effect when they have the fire under the skin, and apparently she spoke to the director about how that worked.
I feel bad for all the Iron Man 3 fans in chat right now. There's a few of them, you know.
I love them. No, that makes me like the Marvels more.
There was a very telling interview where she talked about making that film.
Sabine
and
Stentor
straight up
has a
said
grasp
there
of
would be
magical
scenes
theory
we
that
were
I would
shooting
never
where
have
I had
expected
no
from a
fucking
human,
clue what it was
even a
supposed to
breath.
be or what was happening.
No doubt most folk
And I
in
just thought,
Skyrim consider
what
the dragons
a revealing
terrifying.
remark from the
I
director
find them
of the movie.
wondrous.
Well, that'd
As
be in line
Gary
with everything else we've
once said,
seen,
like-
right? Like the
Well, as Gary said, like
Speak if you must, but mind your
hired
tongue.
so much as they're
No,
cast
that honor is
in the role
Sabine
of director,
Stentor's.
but they don't
A
actually
smart
do
man
anything.
steers clear of Stentor.
They're just there to oversee
And keeps
this
himself
project,
out of the
this,
dungeon when she's
machine
having a
that's
bad
already
day.
up and running when they get there.
Let's
They
just
can
say
use
that
it
the
as well.
headman's
She was one of
axe
the
may not be the
writers.
worst way
They
for a
had 3 writers on
solitude
this,
jail
Nia Costa
prisoner
was one of
to
them.
die.
So she did have
Look
some
at that.
creative control. It's not
I
like
told
she
you to
just-
watch
she
your
was
tongue,
director,
and
she
mine
had
is
to do the
waggling.
script. Yeah, she
I've
was a
said
director
enough.
and she also was one of 3 writers.
Yeah, you are excused.
Yeah, I think
So she did
at this
have
stage,
quite a
she
bit
had
of creative control.
Great control, you would say.
Yeah.
I just
that's what we got.
imagine like being in the shoes of someone like Chloe Zhao. It's like, hey, I just made this movie on a budget of like $50 about a woman who drives around in a van and talks to people. You know, won an Oscar. I'm pretty happy about that. Okay, what am I doing next? Right, I'm in charge of like a $250 million ensemble cast action superhero movie.
Provided me
What
like
the fuck am I even supposed to be doing here?
Fame bribing.
Yeah,
I mean, when they
Materials
made,
are good for
when they
business,
made Thor,
and
they brought in
business is good for
Kenneth
Skyrim.
Branagh, who had done dozens of movies by that stage.
May
and
the
he'd
gods
directed a
watch
lot of,
over your battles, friend.
Very well regarded stuff. He'd done all his Shakespeare stuff by that stage. So that
I
makes
won't
sense.
turn to the court.
You
Done
go
for
from
something.
Kenneth
Can't make
Branagh,
do
who's
without
basically
me.
a genius, right?
Please address
And
all questions to the
now
steward.
you're hiring Nia
Folk
DaCosta.
Fireblade.
What?
It's a fine day
How
with
do you
you
go
around.
from Kenneth Branagh to Nia DaCosta, a woman who has 2 crappy, low-budget indie movies behind her,
No.
on a $250 million
Although it's
movie?
true my husband
It's
Torrid was the
absolute
High
insanity.
King,
Talk
and I
about
am his
executive
widow.
oversight. Why
I
did
am
no
in
one say no? We
Ulfric
can't have this woman
Stormcloak is
directing this. She doesn't have the
victorious,
experience.
and the Jarls have
It's
fallen in
remember-
line.
nuts.
The
It
Captain
seems I will
America
never
is
take
Joe
my
Johnston,
rightful place as
who
High
made the
Queen.
Rocketeer. Like, let's not forget that. And
Be well.
then you got
Pray for
obviously
solitude
Kenneth
and my
Branagh. I don't
husband.
think anyone needs to go over all of those films. John Favreau, perfectly established. Certainly, that was like one of his high points for his career, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of like stuff he was making. And then Avengers getting Joss Whedon. It's like it almost seems like they're hiring people on their experience and their ability
so
to do
good
these
to see you
projects going
again.
forward. That's interesting. I wonder what happened. That completely got annihilated by the time we reached like the transition from phase 3 to 4.
That is, yeah.
I
that
was,
is
to
not
my
the
shame.
criteria by which
The whole
they
court
hire
was in
creatives.
attendance.
You know,
I've
it's
seen
not
much in
down
my
to
time,
experience
but
and,
that was a
and
gruesome day.
skill and ability. It's other things.
Because Ulfric
things that you're
needed a
born with,
symbol.
you might say.
Someone he could defeat that
I was
represented
going to say,
the
like,
Empire.
all of this feeds into
the white
the
gold
result
concordant,
that we've
the
had
banning
recently,
of Talos
that,
worship.
Disney are now on track
Toryg's
to
father
lose
Islot had held Skyrim together for nearly 25
$750
years.
million
When he
across
died,
13
Torygg
films
became
this
that
year in
symbol.
historic year of box office flops.
No, even after
13
Islot died,
movies.
the Moot
I
voted to make
think
Torygg
only
High
2
King
of
of
them have
Skyrim.
actually turned a profit.
But Ulfric was
out
at
of
that
all of
moot,
this.
continually talking about Skyrim's
Yeah, I'm just looking
independence
through
in
their
terms just shy
lineup
of
of films
treason.
this year.
I don't think Ulfric knew how much Torygg respected him for that.
That made it, well,
If Ulfric had
marginal.
asked Torygg
Not-
directly to stand
not
up,
huge.
to declare
Well,
independence, Torygg might have done
What
it.
was the other one?
Because the
I'm just
Dominion is a
looking through the
sleeping
list here.
beast
So,
that Skyrim cannot slay alone.
let's see.
Because many Nords are part of the Imperial Army even now. Because the food and resources we get
Ant-Man
from
and
the
Wasp
Empire are
Quantumania had a
important to our
deficit
people.
of 37 million
Because
apparently.
even if we
so
can't
not
openly
good.
worship him, Talos the god was once Tiber
Guardians of the
Septim
Galaxy,
man,
98
and
million.
this is his empire.
Little Mermaid,
And
that
Torg
lost 40,
wasn't ready to let it
Boogeyman
fall
lost
apart.
14, Elemental lost a couple
I was a member
million.
of the court during the reign of
Indiana
Torg's
Jones
father.
lost
It was
158
Torg who
million.
appointed me to the position.
Haunted Mansion lost 140 million. The creator lost money as well, actually.
Very.
Quite a
I
big
helped raise him.
Centennial.
Oh, I could not have been more
how
proud
bad
to see
is it
Torg
that
on the
we
throne.
consider breaking
He made a
even
fine
success?
king.
Like
fine
that's
king.
really
Well,
when you make these movies, you expect to like
Take
at least
care of
double your
yourself,
money.
and always
Like,
remember,
If
the
you're
world is
going to
ripe
put
with
in like
people looking to spill
250
your
million,
blood.
yeah, you're going to expect some pretty major profits because that's a huge gamble.
Opportunity cost, right? You spend
There's
all
a-
this
yeah, lost
time,
opportunity
effort, connections,
costs.
networking to
spent-
create something that only makes that much money. That's absurd. That's terrible.
Yeah. And it's not just that, like, you would have rejected
lots of things to take
other
care of.
projects
What do you
before
need?
you got to the project you decided to put your money into.
Oh, 100%.
Huh?
And like it is a case of yes, not everything you invest in makes money, and so some things will be a success, it will be a failure. But when everything in Disney you're investing in it is a failure, that just becomes then a point where you will never invest anything in the future. There will become a point where,
Well, obviously that's why their
like,
stock
this
price
is
is
just
dropping.
well, exactly. Yeah. This is just a
I mean-
no-go at this point.
Yeah, I mean, losing $750 million in a year is crushing because Disney doesn't have that much money to throw away on stuff like this. And so when they have a whole year of deficits, that's not something they can easily bounce back from. You know, a company the size of Amazon could absorb that kind of loss. Disney can't.
They can't even like break glass in case of emergency because all of what they did this year could be considered breaking glass in case of emergency. A lot of it, anyway.
Well, they've still got bringing back Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man.
Well, that plus Avengers is their last move for the MCU. Like that's all they've got left.
My
Amazon
understanding is that there's... Go ahead.
Amazon's break glass is like just their normal retail business that will always keep going. They can expand it as much as they want. They can expand it into other countries.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't really matter what they do with their entertainment business. It will always just be, it's like a side gig for them. Whereas Disney, you can argue that their parks are what have made the money as much as you want, but their parks are linked to the success of their other IPs. And so if their other IPs are not a success, their parks will eventually die.
And this is always the argument of when Star Wars becomes a brand much more focused on selling toys than making films, without realizing that it's only because the films were popular that the toys were popular to begin with.
Yes.
You do actually need to create an actual IP that causes people to want to go and experience that in practical terms, which Disney isn't doing anymore. But this is a long-term failure of strategy, and it can't be blamed. It can entirely be blamed on Bob Iger. It can't really be blamed on JPEG, because the whole MO seems to have been, we will buy up as many recognizable IPs as possible, and this will produce immense amounts of money for us. Because, you know, a sequel to Star Wars, a sequel to Indiana Jones, a sequel to whatever you care to name,
but you
everyone
can just
knows
call
these
me
franchises.
Erica's
Our
sister.
long-term future is dependent
It would seem so.
on us making money off of sequels. And now Bob Iger comes out and says, maybe we made too many sequels. But if you had competent writers, there's no such thing as too many Star Wars sequels.
I don't think so.
You're talking about Star Wars, not Cars. But apparently, no, we can't even make one Star Wars sequel that's good would be good enough. But he says they've made too many of them now. And they're going to focus on quality over quantity, which is just a tacit, not even very tacit admission that they've been churning out immense amounts of shit. And now they're going to try and make a good film for a change.
Well, he says, there's a quote from him here, actually, where he says, I don't want to apologize for making sequels. Some of them have done extraordinarily well, and they've been good films, too. I think there has to be a reason to make them, though, and you have to have a good story. That's probably what they lacked. And often the story doesn't hold up to, or is not as strong as the original story. That can be a problem.
What do you need? Take a look.
It's their strategy, right, of buying up IPs and extending them by just making sequels or remakes of originals. It's a short-term win. It's something that allows you to generate quite a lot of hype and quite a lot of interest in the short term, but you burn through the goodwill very, very quickly by doing that. And you can see what they've done with it. It's definitely happened with Star Wars, and now it's kind of getting to that point where Marvel is just referencing itself, and like none of the new stuff that they're trying to launch is working. They're now looking back towards resurrecting old characters and so on. It's all short-term wins to just try and get by. There's no long-term plan there, and
Come back to bits and pieces anytime.
It creates then is that you don't put any effort into creating new stories. there used to be a time when Disney was quite innovative about telling new stories, creating new characters. Their animated movies were awesome stuff.
I'm afraid I'm running errands at the moment, but please visit me later at the Temple of the
Divines.
Divines.
Resonating with people, and the endless live action remakes are now hitting rocky ground because look at what's happening with Little Mermaid, and then to a much greater extent something like Snow White. People are getting sick of that as well.
Yeah, but if I look at any of this,
they've rejected innovation in terms of in favor of imitation. And when I saw their last movie, Wish, I was just
right
looking
behind
at,
you.
It's the only thing that
I'm
I suppose
amazed, not a
I don't know if this is
pawnbroker,
innovative because I don't know a lot about animation, but you've got the 3D characters on a 2D background, which looks awful, by the way. It didn't work. And I don't know if you would call that innovative. Even if it is a failed attempt, at least they tried something different, but it does look bad. But when I was looking at that movie, I just thought, this is just... A lot of people, when I went onto the comments, I was looking at reviews online, and a lot of people had the same comment. This feels and looks like it was created by an AI. That's what Disney are now. There's absolutely no innovation. It's just regurgitation, imitation, sequels, prequels, remakes, and requels, and trying to reuse the same character. It's why Marvel absolutely should not try to revive Iron Man or Black Widow or any of the rest of them. The company has completely lost all ability to innovate. It's terrified of innovation.
The thing is with me is, like, I came to Star Wars via the games mainly. If I think of anything that attracted me to Star Wars, it was mainly via the games, and so that's where all of the emotional resonance came from for me. And if I think of anything which had an impact on me, it was the stories which aligned with my kind of either moral outlook or made me think about things. You even get to, like, there was the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, the MMO, the one thing that sticks with me out of everything, it was the secret agent storyline. There was a bit in that where you're asked to make a certain decision which is incredibly emotionally impactful. Do you take revenge? Do you not? Does this impact you or not? And it all comes down to your values versus the values of the story. And I can't help thinking that, like, all of this could be incredibly simplified by just, like, when people are like, is it a good story? They mean, does this make me feel something? Versus, does this just make me feel nothing? And that comes down to does the values of the writer, do they appeal to something which appeals to you as a person and your moral outlook or not? And that's why I think that so many Hollywood writers cannot physically make a story that appeals to the audience, because their moral outlook is so different to that of the general audience that they physically cannot look at the world from their point of view. And
here's a question for you, Disbury. Okay. Do you think that the writers, the people who are making these movies, do they even conceive of a movie as something that can just be a story that does not need to be a platform for moral or political messaging?
No.
Does that even occur to them?
I don't think so, because I think that they think it is literally like such a moral good that it has to be done. Like it's not their money on the line, and so they no longer care.
That's definitely the BBC mentality.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I think the BBC would be much better if there was somebody there that had to put the money on the line for every single episode. Then there would be some kind of I don't know the word exactly. It's not like punishment, but if someone's money is on the line, there's like oversight. I've lost £500,000 on this episode, therefore I will make sure the next one doesn't make the same mistake.
Well, speaking of money being on the line, Elon Musk has some thoughts on this. Regarding the use of advertising on Twitter or X or whatever the hell you want to call it. And a lot of advertisers threatening to pull out of it or just straight up doing it as a way of staging their protest against the fact that it's more pro-free speech, I guess. And it's interesting to see his reaction to it. And he was not shy about sharing his thoughts regarding this. And I'm just going to play the clip of it, actually, because it's fantastic. I just want to hear what he has to say.
Each war, if you will. That this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself.
But
I love how everyone just goes silent there in the audience. Like they did not know what to
I also
say
like
to that.
But you
it has never happened
that
before.
This man is the literal definition of having fuck you money.
Yes.
You can just say that. I just want to see what else he's got.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Is that clear?
No. Fuck yourself.
I hope it is. Hey, Bob, here in the audience.
Well, let me ask you then.
That's how I feel. Don't advertise.
That guy has no idea how to
do you think
respond,
that
by the way.
Yeah, it's great.
Like,
you can
that,
just
let me
see
ask you, hang on, let me formulate that question, because this is not what I was expecting.
Well,
the brain was just short-circuiting there. It's like, this is going against the programming. I don't understand.
It's gone off script.
Yeah. It's not just going against the programming of the interviewer. The Dealbook Summit is this meeting of effectively high-level executives and entrepreneurs. So this is a meeting. The audience is all composed of people who are at the absolute tops of the companies who will be making decisions like the ones Elon is referring to there about advertising and all the rest of that. And for a very long time, you've had a clique and a cult of business executives who all share pretty much the same moral values as it comes to the application of global finance to pushing social change. And they have never before been told directly to their faces, because no one has access to them, go fuck yourself if you're going to try and use your money to pressure me to do away with a value like freedom of speech and expression. Most of these people are shocked when they hear that, because it's completely new for them. They don't understand it. They only ever speak to each other. That is a networking event where they only ever speak to each other. And now they're being told, someone finally has actually got to stand up and say, no, actually, everything that you think is good in terms of your corporate responsibility index and your ESG scores, and the way that you're absolutely prepared to bow down to the state in imposing free speech restrictions on social media, and to the point of potentially breaching the First Amendment if the most recent stories about YouTube and the Biden administration are true. This is not actually on, and we're not really going to be taking it anymore. You're doing a bad thing, and you think that it's good. Disney, you preach LGBT values. You say that you will campaign against the Parental Rights and Education Act in the same month as you launch Disney Plus in Saudi Arabia. Who the hell are you to be lecturing us on morality?
Yeah. There's something just incredibly cathartic about just hearing those words coming from him. Like, just to all these people, like you say, who are never familiar with being told no, just for this guy to stand up and say, nah, go fuck yourself, I don't care.
That's the only thing.
It's great.
It requires somebody that doesn't care about what they have to offer. And they have been so used to carrying so much that everybody else wants, that they can literally do whatever they want, and everyone else will bow down. And let's be honest, the most stupid thing that has ever happened to the internet is the idea that if an advertiser appears next to something, that they agree with it. They've never seen that thing, they never intended to advertise next to the thing, they don't know what they're appearing next to. Even the very idea that you just appearing next to something agrees with it is farcical. But it has been pressured that way by pressure groups who know that it is literally impossible to enforce, and which is why it's been done that way in the first.
Well, it becomes a form of collective bargaining on the part of advertisers, because if they all work in lockstep to further advertising from a company, from a platform, it can cripple it. It can shut it down.
Yeah,
and so it's the ability of them to enforce the ultimate sanction on someone like that who dares to step outside of the approved line. They can say, well, we'll all pull our advertising simultaneously, and there's nothing you can do about it. You will be bankrupt, and you will be humbled, and you will either comply with us or you're done. And suddenly they're confronted with a guy who's got essentially unlimited resources at his disposal, who does have the fuck you money, and who can say, no, fuck you. If you think you can pull this on me, try it. I dare you.
I mean,
it is very... Well, it's very satisfying to see him call it blackmail, because they wouldn't consider it that. They call it, environmental, social, and governmental justice, and they all have all these nice corporate buzzwords for it, like positive impact and all this nonsense. But it isn't. It's just blackmail. Like, ESG is blackmail. If your company does not behave the way that BlackRock believes they should behave, then BlackRock will cut off your line of credit. That is blackmail, plain and simple. And it's beautiful to hear Elon call it out for what it is.
I've seen some people mention that he said something cringe after it, though. Does anyone know about that? Because I haven't seen anything after it. Elon continued to say something after that was not as cool.
I'm trying to remember because I watched the full clip. He goes on to say that in the long run, if they do continue to use the blackmail tactics, then they will destroy Twitter. He does acknowledge, or X, sorry. Yes, he does acknowledge that a continuous pulling of adverts will eventually destroy the company. And I don't know whether or not that was particularly scripted on his part, but nevertheless, as someone said earlier, he does have fuck you money, so does he really care?
He said he kept using this term of like tell it to the earth, and I think what he meant to say was like tell it to like the general public, because essentially his gambit was, okay, you could in theory all pull your advertising, Twitter would go bankrupt and shut down, but if you do that, we will see to it that they know exactly what you did. They'll know exactly what your thinking was behind it, and they'll know that you're the people that are responsible for destroying this platform.
That was it, because then the interviewer said, so what, do you think that the public will turn against Disney? And Musk says, yes. Do you think they'll boycott Disney? And Musk says, well, they already are. So, so that is happening. I don't know, I mean, some of this can be sort of virtually online discourse. I don't know exactly how much of the public would boycott Disney for an ad block on Twitter, for example. But nevertheless, at least somebody is trying to leverage the public against corporations that can control the public. What it's dangerous.
My point would always be, a lot of the way that I judge the world is essentially by what my dad knows. He is literally just the ultimate normie of everything. Like, he's never into any of this specifically, but he hears about stuff through the news and stuff. And if he starts hearing about how Disney movies are all trash and he doesn't want to see them, then that's what I go off. And he has no intention at all of seeing any of this new stuff. He doesn't know about Elon Musk and Twitter. He probably doesn't even know who owns Twitter. But he still doesn't want to see the latest Disney movie of whatever it is. And so I think with any of this thing, it doesn't really matter whether it's on... Like, the online sphere only... They're like the tip of the sphere. But it's not... They're not the only people that know any of this stuff. It always has a longer-term effect, and this is nothing that companies can turn around on their own. Because all of this comes down to, does the average man in the street tell their friends that this was a great movie?
Thanks.
If they don't, the movie's going to die.
I think something that's really been hammered home for me over the past couple of years is how monumentally slow and behind the times the mainstream media are when it comes to reporting on declining franchises, problems within studios, and so on. Because we've all been in this situation where probably 2-3 years ago we were saying, look, the MCU has got problems. It feels like it's heading in a bad direction creatively. It doesn't seem to have much drive now after Endgame, or before that, even Star Wars. Hey, these sequel movies are really not as good as they're cracked up to be, and kind of feels like they're dealing with crappy characters. They just feel like weak, inferior copies of the original trilogy. And only now are you getting the mainstream media outlets reporting on this and saying, yeah, Marvel is in crisis. Star Wars is a bit of a failure. Like, only now. And you realize, like, they are so slow to react to any of this stuff. They're so slow to admit to any of these problems. And that's their ultimate downfall. Like, people like us were just years ahead of it. Not just us, obviously, but the whole online space. Because you've got people who are not corporate sponsored. They are not dependent on favors and access and all that other useless crap that stops people from actually speaking their true thoughts. We can just say it like it is.
But this is the problem that most mainstream media does have, which is that they are attempting to serve two masters and have been for a very long time. And for as long as it was the case that there wasn't a mass public backlash to whatever it is they were talking about, then they would absolutely prioritize whatever line of spin that the company that grants them access will want them to have. This is why IGN will reliably now give 9 out of 10 to something in 2 weeks' time they'll say was crap, because we're starting to see this separation of the two interests now, because most of the audience that the site actually does rely on for its viewership numbers, and so for its ad impressions, and so for its day-to-day revenue, is not going to be coming anymore for an article which is just shilling a company line. All of a sudden, these institutions are now trying to decide, and most of them are failing to decide, which of the two is more important to them. Is it the access that the company will grant them, or is it the readers that actually bankroll the majority of their organization? And Until quite recently, they've been able to do both, and now they can't do that anymore. But you also have in the broader, and this is sort of going back to the X and the Elon Musk thing, and the reason that so many journalists are also shocked when Elon Musk tells advertisers to go fuck themselves is that there's a much deeper problem with mainstream newspapers in particular, which is that they are now entirely reliant on the corporate side of things, because investigative journalism, which can lose you friends, is expensive, whereas advert placements from big corporations who will sell you advertorials are cheap and profitable even. And so these people don't ever mix with the people of the opposing point of view. It's not in their interest to actually criticize the company line anymore. Mainstream media is in a multiple crises, and that's just two of them.
Yeah. Well, there's a complete lack of confidence at this point. I mean, like people have pointed out before, you've got these the social media presence of the various journalistic websites, whether it's video games like IGN and Kotaku and so on, who theoretically have millions of followers on social media, and then when they post things up, they get like 50 likes. So there's no belief in them anymore. There's no engagement whatsoever because no one cares. And like, how is that a sustainable future for them?
Oh, it never was. My favorite article of Kotaku was when I don't think it's their current editor, it was their previous editor, when she came into power.
Do your worst.
Actually, it's the most honest article I've ever seen online. It was kind of like suicide to publish, really. But she said that their entire method of being a website was to rely on Google traffic. And we were just going to post controversial stuff. We had an infinite amount of Google traffic to come in, and so we'd just keep posting it. Google would send us all these visitors, and we didn't need to worry about our audience because Google would just keep sending us new stuff. And then Google traffic ran out, and then our entire website died. And she actually posted about how we're a gaming website, but we're not getting gaming traffic anymore, so we're gonna have to expand past gaming. And it's like, yeah, you have literally... And she never even seemed to consider the fact that you have killed your audience. That's the real problem. It's not that gaming went away, it's that you scared away every single person on the internet that could possibly be interested in gaming. And I think a lot of people did that. They had YouTube or Google traffic, and they didn't need to worry about actually pleasing anyone. And then suddenly it runs out, and they have no idea what to do. Which is
like, particularly with gaming, like the accessibility of just content creators who believe in this stuff and who are so much more passionate about this stuff than the actual journalists who are supposed to be covering it makes it so accessible. Because as a gamer, people are already online. They're already going to be on places like YouTube and stuff and looking for this stuff. So it's so much easier to get this now. It's like they were essentially made obsolete in their own market.
Yeah, but they
were sympathy.
They relied on we can get the reviews a couple of days earlier. We can get access to this game a couple of days earlier, and it's just not enough. But it's
not because like ultimately, if people find creators that they respect and that they listen to, they'll fucking wait. They'll wait for them to play the game and give their opinion because they care what they have to say and they respect that. They don't respect any of these outlets now because they know how fake they are. I can't imagine anyone like going to somewhere like Kotaku or Polygon because they want to know what the real deal is with the latest game that came out. They know they're not going to get that. It's corporate approved trash.
I don't know which outlet it was. It might have been Kotaku, but when the Hogwarts Legacy game came out, and I think the first major piece of coverage was this long essay from one of the staff writers saying, I felt I really had to address this question as a trans person and as a person of color. I think Hogwarts Legacy is really damaging to my community. I'm looking at that, and it's a really, really long article as well. And I'm thinking, well, what are you? Are you supposed to be a games news outlet, or are you supposed to be just a carbon copy of every other think piece that's written in anywhere? Because that's not about gaming anymore. That's again about current real-world political issues, using games as a launch pad to discuss it. No one's interested
same
in
about that ridiculous article about like the latest Tomb Raider game, where it's like, well, you know, I have to try and grapple with the post-colonial legacy of Lara Croft stealing indigenous artifacts. Who the fuck is gonna care even remotely about any of that crap?
Me, Drinker. That's all I think about when I play Tomb Raider.
The first Kotaku article I came up with Hogwarts Legacy was 15 hours with Hogwarts Legacy. The discourse around the Harry Potter game encompassed J.K. Rowling's rancid politics and the role of criticism itself. So at no point were they criticizing the game, what was in its mechanics. It was all about what is our job with regards to this game and what should we tell people.
I've got a question I have to ask. This is a request for someone's birthday tomorrow, and it's directed at you, Mauler. I'd like to ask Mauler to give me his favorite pun from Batman and Robin in Arnie's voice for my birthday tomorrow.
What's my favorite one? I love all of them. It's hard to pick. And then I worry if I pick one that's too small.
Killing the dinosaurs, perhaps.
Try you're not sending me back to the cooler.
Oh, fuck it. I'll just do both. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. And wait, what was what you said? Sorry.
You're not
putting me in the cooler.
You're not sending me to the cooler.
There you go.
Also, happy birthday or whatever.
Anyway, I hope you have an awesome birthday tomorrow, man. In all seriousness, I'd also like to ask why Mr. Robot isn't talked about with the other greats like Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones. I don't think enough of seen.
I haven't seen Mr. Robot.
I've seen a lot of Mr. Robot. It depends what you're talking to specifically. I know more about the start than the end.
Because you watched the start, but not the end.
Well, no, I did watch the end. Everything got a bit repetitive, and it relied around the same tactic of like an unreliable narrator. That everything that happened, it was lying to you, and so it became a bit predictable. I felt like the first series was the strongest because you didn't know what was coming.
Someone in chat was asking as well, like, why does it matter if Elon Musk was telling off Disney? Drinker does it all the time. Yeah, the difference is that, like, no one cares what I say about it, but, like, someone like Elon Musk is one of the most famous people on the planet, so clearly if he does it, yeah, it's a big deal.
Put $44 billion behind it, I'll care the same amount.
It's
so
annoying though,
basically,
that you can
Elon,
spend
give
3
me
years
50 billion.
telling Disney to go fuck themselves, and Elon Musk just has to say it once, and everyone pays attention. I guess it's the world we live in.
Well,
yeah.
Well, my favorite bit was when there's like, yeah, but what do you mean? He was like giving him an out. It's like you can reverse all of this if you just say. He's like, no, go fuck yourself. Just so everybody knows what's happening.
It's kind of like that moment in Alan Partridge where it's like, is there anything I can do to undo this? No. It's like, oh, fuck it.
The great thing as well is that
She's the guy.
Linda Yaccarino is her name, I think it is, who now runs the corporate side of X, was in the audience as he was saying it. And I just wish I'd hand over to her face.
Her only job is to win advertisements to his side. And she's like, oh no.
The thing is, there's going to be a lot of companies that like are smaller, not necessarily don't have the billions of dollars to throw around like Disney does, but they will so get on board with this, that spirit of like rebellion and just sticking it to the system. There's so many of these smaller companies that will now buy into Twitter advertising and probably get it at rock bottom prices as well.
Yes. Well, that is the thing with any free market thing. Obviously, the less demand, the cheaper it is. And so if you want to advertise to a load of people, like every single person on Twitter is still worth the same today as they were yesterday. But now you can get them way cheaper. And so it self-balances out all that kind of stuff. And this is one of the issues with the whole YouTube apocalypse and all that kind of stuff, the advertisement apocalypse. It was a load of people. The companies would leave, and then they would slowly sneak back in over the next few months and just get all the same advertisement they would have got previously cheaper. Like, it was literally basically a scam to get their own views cheaper than they were before. So I literally think the main thing that needs to die on the internet is the idea that advertisers are linked or in any way endorse what they're advertised next to. It doesn't make any sense when you think about it.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure I get adverts for like Marvel and Disney products on my videos. Like,
yeah, I kept getting told Rings of Power was advertised alongside my videos at the time.
That's hilarious.
I did an anti-Gillette sort of a video where I advertised Gillette's anti-meal ad. And apparently a lot of people in the comments were writing, I keep getting Gillette ads while watching this.
Yeah, because it's keyword based, so it makes sense.
Yeah, we made fun of BetterHelp for like a half hour, one of the newest EFAPs, and people were like, you know, there's BetterHelp ads all over the EFAP.
I looked at it, it was the first one, yeah, it was right underneath the video. So well done for the ad associations there.
It's such a waste of money. But like, all right, go ahead.
I like this one here. Cheers, drinker and panel. This is set out for Musk, honestly. I'd say imagine if someone with that kind of cash was in the entertainment industry and could tell off all these agenda-pushing idiots. But for now, we can settle for South Park. That is true. I honestly don't know what's stopping him from just buying up a Hollywood studio and starting to make movies. That's the thing he should get into next.
He wouldn't. I mean, he could do that with Daily Wire. He could invest a huge amount of money over there, get some stock from them, and make major moves.
I think they're doing their own thing, and that could work. I think you'd need a separate thing. The issue with Musk is, as you've seen with Twitter, and his choice of CEO. I think when you buy this stuff, you still you want to invest in the mainstream, and so you still go that kind of course. What this takes is somebody who completely understands that it isn't the business model that's broken, it is the people involved. And so you have to go with an entirely, essentially opposite moral paradigm of the people that are there within the company. And until people grasp that, I don't think you can fix it.
I mean, it'll have to fix itself ultimately, or the system's going to just run out of revenue because
no one's buying it. I think that's the solution. I think that's what's going to have to happen. Because I don't think Disney or anyone is turning around. There's no way they're going to fire most of their company and hire people who have the exact opposite moral point of view. It's too far.
Do you think it's going to get so bad for Disney that they're eventually going to have to, possibly in several years' time, declare bankruptcy and start selling off their assets to pay their debts? So, I mean,
I don't know with Disney because they have parks and stuff, and so these companies are so massive. They have such massive revenue.
Yeah, I know like 60-70% comes from the parks, but
I wonder.
All four of the major studios are failing and are releasing.
But I think they would all be considered separate business entities, so it might
Never should have come here.
Or they could bankrupt Lucasfilm, for example, or they could bankrupt Marvel, or just like withdraw from the filmmaking business altogether for a while, but like keep parks and all the other stuff that they do. There's always like options, so the thing, like a business of that size is always going to be segmented, so you can retain the profitable stuff and ditch the stuff that isn't working for you anymore. And yeah, I could see them scaling back. I mean, from what Iger said, that's exactly what they're going to do anyway. He says they're going to focus on quality over quantity.
But I don't think they know what quality is. Like,
no, they don't. No, it sounds nice.
To morality, and they just have no idea. Like,
it's probably code for we know there's too much political garbage in our films now, and we need to get rid of that, but we can't say it because that would kill our ESG score or whatever, or make people mad at us on Twitter.
That's actually my worst nightmare. I've said this for a while. Russell T Davies came out with the same kind of thing. It's like, we'll have to keep trying stuff and testing to see what works and what doesn't. But if they come up with a sort of half and half, where it's like, yeah, we've got a load of indoctrination, but also there's enough good content that people will kind of go, I'll accept it, and we'll just kind of go on from there. That's my hell. If people are like, yeah, I'll accept the indoctrination for something that's good enough, but isn't quite in my face enough.
Take the indoctrination. I'm curious about this one from Ian So Forth. Lindo Yacarino is now the Jim Halpert from The Office. Is this the Office reboot that they're talking about? Wow. That's going to be female-led?
I don't know The Office. That's my problem.
I mean, this was an announcement that was doing the rounds a few months back, actually, that they were going to do a reboot of The Office for like the third time now, I think. And this one was going to be female-centric. I don't know why you would do it. You had the British one.
Mindy Kaling to be showrunner. She'd be great.
Might as well, yeah. She's too busy with Velma, the massive success that was.
Oh, hopefully. I'm looking forward to
Remember, all you guys' videos is what made that happen.
I will take credit for it if that's what it needs. I'll take credit for the season 2 of Velma.
I'm pretty sure they confirmed season 2 before my first video went out. Yeah, apparently, I'm still responsible
because they knew you were making the video. They were like, oh shit, he's making season 2.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Has season 2 of She-Hulk now been canned?
Well, I don't look. In 2 days, I heard it's been renewed and it's been cancelled, and so I don't trust anybody.
Yeah, I don't trust anybody on it anymore either.
At this point, I'm just a paranoid guy. Like, please stop teasing me.
Yeah.
I even saw yesterday that they're gonna do Kang Dynasty now, having previously announced. Like, you can't trust the rumor mill.
Yeah. Until Disney come out and go, this is what's happening, I don't trust anybody.
It's that whole thing is like Schrodinger's movie. It's all going to depend on whether or not Jonathan Majors gets sent to prison.
It is. It really is. And I think no matter what at this point, even if he's found completely innocent, that he'll have a reduced role just because they're like.
I will get sent to prison if it means we get a She-Hulk season 2. It's like if I need to be.
I appreciate your.
I was thinking there. I was thinking there for a moment about actors in reduced roles, and I watched when I went to see Napoleon yesterday. There was a trailer for Aquaman 2, and I kid you not, Amber Heard was in it for approximately 0.6 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
That was all she got, and I would have assumed that she would have been a major character in that film. Barely mentioned in the trailer.
Well,
I mean. There was another one here. Clarification, apparently. I meant the Twitter CEO as an office name as Elon dropped his F-bombs.
Meme.
Okay.
I don't know the office well enough. That's my problem. I hate
Linda Yaccarino is the CEO of Twitter, so it would be unusual for her to take the step down of joining the office, but it's not impossible.
It's not impossible. We can
make this work.
I think he meant in the general paradigm of the office. You had like the Twitter CEO and then one of her underlings going on national television.
I'm glad he's only paid $100 to try and get across the
what I mean.
Yeah, sorry, man. No, I'm still not getting it, Ian. You're going to have to clarify again.
A few hundred more.
I despise the American office.
No, I get what you're saying. It's always like Jim who has that like raised eyebrow reaction to like whatever Michael Scott's doing, like whatever insanity.
Yeah, and like looks over at the camera. He does that a lot.
Yeah. So no, that makes sense. So apologies, you had to spend so much money just to get your point across. How about we do some super chats though and see where we end up with this? How does that sound?
We started with them so very well.
I'm always thinking like, should I just say no?
Yeah. Okay, we're not doing it then. That's it. We're ending the stream. We're done because Mauler said so. All right, I'll do a few. LC Le Pen says, Game Awards are coming up, but since I'm sure people only care about who crashes the stage this time, what are the open bar's best and worst games of 2023?
Well, the worst is
Game 3 for best.
Yeah, I'll submit Gollum and King Kong for worst. And Alan Wake 2, fuck that game.
I mean, if the finals will actually release this year, I'd still submit the finals for the best. The finals is my favorite FPS in years. But it's only been in betas. It's supposed to release this year.
I've got RoboCop, Rogue City, ready to go. I just haven't had a chance to play it yet.
I'm the same. I've got it, but I haven't played it.
Get going, Drinker.
I'll get there. Yeah, I love this as well. So did this joke land?
Nobody knows them. Nobody knows the people.
Yeah, honestly, please stop spending all your money on this. I'm worried you're going to bankrupt yourself.
Say yes. Yes, it landed. We all thought it was.
Yeah, honestly. You absolutely killed it, mate. Best joke we've had on Open Bar ever. Thank you. Taker610 says, when Russell T. Davies says that there's a long history of associating evil with disability, is he referring to Austin Powers? In Austin Powers 3, Dr. Evil does use a powered wheelchair.
He does.
I thought he was referring to himself. Like, he literally said, I have a problem with this, and so did a lot of people in my office.
I thought because Russell T. Davies is evil and disabled.
Ever since I watched Doctor Who and Davros back in the classic episodes, I just couldn't look at a disabled person without thinking you're fucking evil and trying to kill them. So
I don't know.
It's always like, we're saying a lot more than we'd intended to.
I do remember reading somewhere that the first Bond villain, Dr. No, because he has artificial hands, I think it might have been The Guardian or some book that I read, some James Bond book, and the notion behind it was that this was very problematic because it depicted disabled people as evil. So this is not this Russell T. Davies nonsense. It's nothing new. I've seen it before, and specifically in reference to Dr. No, the first Bond villain, the first one depicted on screen.
It was always the irony of that position, which is that you had anti-racist activists saying that orcs in World of Warcraft and Lord of the Rings were racist because they are representations of black people. That no non-racist person would ever have said that, but the anti-racists did. Feminists said that, oh, well, all Scarlett Johansson was as Natasha Romanoff was tits. And saying, well, no, she was a good character, but, you're the feminist, so I guess I defer to you. All these people who profess to be on the side of the people they're talking for are the ones who have the most reductive view of the characters they're talking about.
Absolutely.
They view them only as their immutable characteristics and nothing else.
there's been lots of discriminatory, racist bigots throughout history, and they're all surfacing now, is what I'm saying. Literally, like, they've all surfaced now in Doctor Who.
Well, I mean, wasn't that part of the quote that Elon gave earlier? I know it wasn't in that clip that I showed, but it was basically, yeah, like so much of what people do now is evil disguised as good, or they want to be seen to be good. It's just performative crap, but ultimately they're still serving their own evil, selfish ends.
I think,
and it's true.
What sucks too is like, even because like, you know, some of the examples you're coming up with, like the Lord of the Rings orcs ones, just like that's fucking patently absurd. But with the ones that, let's say, like, you know, let's say there was a patent notice and you got quotes from the 80s and back that whenever there was a gay character in a TV show or a movie, that the execs were like, can you please kill this character off as soon as possible, because like audiences don't like seeing gay. Let's say that was true, and it did cause a trend of a lot of gay characters dying, and that's what created the bury a gays trope. It's like, so what's the solution? It's like, well, now we give all gay characters hyper plot armor to overcompensate and overcorrect. And it's like, no, you just stop killing them because you're told to. That's all.
Did you ever see a point where the pendulum sort of settles? And so, like, you haven't like hyper swung in one direction and you haven't overcompensated in the other. It just kind of reaches a point where it's like, okay, we've got a sensible middle ground now where we write good characters again.
Your issue is the pendulum was never on one side to begin with. The pendulum was literally used as a weapon to try and gain power over other people. And so it was claimed that it was on one side, but it never was. They just intended it to be this way. Salt said to everyone, we're so oppressed. And then eventually said, so now we can never be killed in any scenario, in any TV show ever again. It's not that anyone was ever specifically targeted, just we claimed it was all along. This is the same way with everything. Like the entire, all of the argumentation relies on the fact that you assume that everyone is honest actors to begin with, rather than just actively out to benefit themselves. And if there's one thing I've learned from watching all the Hollywood actors, they only ever support positions which benefit themselves. Every single time anyone goes, I think we need more of this actor, just happens to be them which they're talking about, which needs more roles. I've never seen anyone support other people.
Wasn't that the actress that played Dar-Ben in the Marvels saying like this role's, or this movie's fantastic, but because it opens up diverse roles for people like me?
Yes.
And so
every
like,
single time
it directly benefits me, so that makes it good.
Every single time it opens up more roles for people like me in whatever category it happens to be.
There's actually a whole section in my Marvels video on exactly this point, because one of the first interviews that came out once the publicity was allowed to start happening was I can't remember the names of the actresses for Ms. Marvel and Rambo. They went on The View. And one of the defenses that you occasionally hear of the Marvels is it's only failed because the actors weren't allowed to promote it. To which my counter is no, because we already know exactly what they're going to say when they do promote it. So it can't make a huge amount of difference. When the actors go on The View and one of them says, oh, it was really important to me that I could wear my natural hairstyle because it's really important to me that people who look like me can wear my hairstyle on a film. And I'm thinking, like, sitting there thinking, like, what about this is selling your movie to an audience? This is not about the audience. This is not about you representing people. This is about you trying to uplift yourself because you are a narcissist. And this is the primary, well, not the primary, it's one of the primary reasons these films do not do well at the box office, because they've become entirely self-referential vehicles for the actor's ego.
Well, I could even get behind the argument that it was, oh, well, it just represents me and I represent a greater majority of the audience. But if that's the case, then you should represent a greater majority of the audience. Whereas in this case, I represent a tiny fraction of the audience, and that's why I'm important. It's like, well, no, even by your own logic, if that's the case, you should represent the majority of the audience. And that's exactly the opposite of what's happening. So it's not even logically consistent within their own worldview. And I've always had a thing in my life where if something isn't logically consistent, somebody is lying to you. Like, every single thing should make sense. Otherwise, somebody is taking the piss.
Ultimately, it comes down to like the business perspective as well. Like, if you're a business, you want to cater to the maximum number of customers possible to attract the most business. And so if your business model specifically is all about targeting the smallest percentage of your potential audience, and just saying, well, everyone else can just fucking deal with it. Well, okay, you can't act surprised if you go out of business then, because nobody's interested in buying your product. Hence the reason Disney's lost $750 million this year alone. You know, one thing follows naturally on from the other.
school of thought as fuck around and find out. So,
yep. Wait, I've got it. This will save everything. Taylor Swift buys Star Wars after the IP is sold off and turns it into a musical, and Elon Musk buys Disney in total and makes a live-action remake of Song of the South. Although by save, I mean burn it down. I mean, yeah, that would be fine, I suppose.
I mean, I genuinely think the only thing stopping these things being a success is the people involved. Like, the IPs and everything is still fine. It is literally the staff that are making it, which is the problem.
Well, if a really great Star Wars movie came out, say, next year, like just an awesome movie, do you think it would be a big success, or do you think the brand is too dead?
I think it might take two. Like,
yeah,
I think
2 or 3, I would say.
Yeah. But I think word of mouth would help it.
If a great Star Wars film came out, our communities would be split. There would be people who would be like, "It's done. I'm not fucking watching that shit."
I agree.
And then there'd be people would be like, "No, seriously, you need to give it a chance."
I mean, that was a big problem with Andor. Like, Andor came out, and it is really good. And
I don't think Andor.
Well, I mean,
Andor isn't good enough
it takes some getting into. Like the prison arc in particular is excellent.
I mean, I gave it 4 episodes. I mean, how much do you want?
Yeah, like that was the same mistake I made. I watched the first 4 and didn't like it, but then I gave the rest of it a chance, and it really does get better. And I do agree that the first 4 episodes are a bit too slowly paced, but
I liked 3.
It's really good. Like
it was like 25%. It wasn't enough for me.
You Disparu, you're that meme of the miner who stops right at the gold. Gives up.
No, but I think 4 hours of content is enough to give a series.
No one's calling you unreasonable, but we're telling you there's some good stuff in there.
Yeah, the prison arc is incredible. The prison arc's the best thing Disney Lucasfilm have ever done.
Yeah, no, I think it's funny to see Andy Serkis nailing it, like with a good script and excellent acting. When, you know, his Snoke was such a fucking waste.
Yeah.
So,
that's it. I would swap Andor in a heartbeat for a Star Wars movie that was as well written as Andor. Because Andor was never going to save Star Wars. Disney Plus shows will never save Star Wars. Only the cinema can actually save Star Wars. But Andor's approach to writing quality and fidelity of character, yes, you can have a bit more action if you want to in a movie, that would probably go a long way toward restoring the franchise. It's a thing to learn from. But if you take anyone who praises Andor to say that Andor itself will save the franchise, then you've heard something that we haven't said.
There's a lot of interesting things regards to that, with regards to like YouTube videos as well. The fact that when you watch a YouTube video, there's a whole load of videos in the right panel that you can click off to. And that means that every single second that you do in a YouTube video has to be entertaining enough that people don't leave. Whereas when you've got someone in the cinema, they're only watching your thing and they can't leave. And so you can then take your time and lead into it a bit more. And
well, this is the thing as well.
Different customer behavior.
If Andor Season 2 is as good as Season 1, it won't matter because it'll be over, and then I don't even know what Gilroy will be doing in relation to Star Wars, if he's going to be attached to it at all. And then at that point, there's nothing. There's no, you watched Andor, so now you watch something. It's like, no, that's just it. It's an island. It's like, oh well.
I don't think Andor Season 2 is going to make a big dent in anything, personally.
That's what I'm saying, though. No. It wouldn't even matter if it did. It would be. It doesn't lead to anything other than stories that have been told. So,
yeah.
The next one is from Robo96, who says, I'm interested to see what most disabled and trans people think of how Daily Wire represents them, because all it seems to do is feed into the stigma that they're constantly victimized in special cases who are different to everyone else. Well, I think
you're gonna review Lady Ballers.
I think what they were saying, because it was probably Doctor Who there. Sorry, I'll retract that one. It's not.
Oh, you thought Daily Wire? That's why that was confusing.
Yeah.
I just found it interesting between the two. It was literally, to me, the director going, I've always associated disability with evil, which is why I kept putting it in my videos. It's like, no, this is a common thing for everyone else. It's like, no, this is just you. And so it was like, me and all of my people at the BBC have always associated disability with evil. I'm like, this is something that needs to be repeated so everyone knows how horrific you are as a person.
It's the same if they're dealing with any minority, whether it's
take a look.
You know, trans people, gay people, whatever, and their attitude is like, well, on behalf of straight white people of the middle class, I am offended on your behalf. You know, it's just
no, but I celebrate that. I've moved past. Oh no, you only represent yourself. To no, you're horrific. If you think that, you should be fired and never seen from again in all of polite company. I am more than willing to engage in like just collectivization in that regard. If you think this, bye. You and your entire department can go off, and we can actually hire new people that actually somehow reflects the morality of the audience.
You wonder how many of them are very weak-willed when it comes to morality, and would they believe the complete opposite if enough people around them did?
Well, in which case, you should hire enough of them that the actual strength of will. If you really want people that actually are like, I need to stand up for my job, then you need to create an entire culture within an industry of people which will say what they think because they want to save their own jobs. Because otherwise, you're going out the door.
And you're right, more like these people, they would switch their minds in a heartbeat and swing to the other side of the political spectrum if, for example, tomorrow the regime decided that the current thing was extreme far right. They would all agree with it. I have no doubt.
I don't think that disabled people are not evil is a particularly right-wing position.
Depends who you talk
Well, you're wrong. All right.
I mean, it is according to Russell T. Davis, but for anyone else.
Return.
Like, maybe disabled people
protect yourself.
We're not even like left and right anymore. It's like fucking crazy.
Well, it would be very left-wing, so, you know.
It would, but no, people respond to incentive structures all the time. So people will switch on a dime if that's what their social network and their social group tells them is right. There's all kinds of... If you want to be black-pilled about humanity, the Ash conformity experiment is a really, really good one. You sit one person down in the room with five other people with a number of lines on the screen, one of which is obviously shorter than the other one. You repeat the test multiple times, and the guy says, no, the shortest one is the shortest. Everyone else deliberately lies. And within about an hour, he has switched to go along with the conformist herd. And he's denying the evidence of his own eyes. The same thing happens, 2 weeks ago, all the people who will go out and say, we absolutely support women and gay rights. Oh, by the way, Osama bin Laden was kind of right in his diagnosis of America, guys.
The divine
that is not about people believing in morality or immorality. That is about people being entirely conformist to their social setting with an incentive structure that determines their behavior. You need to switch the incentive structure in studios to make it less profitable to push random political positions and more profitable to make profitable movies again, and then you might see some sort of change.
And you also have to instill in these people that your morality should be the morality of the audience, not you trying to convince the audience that they have to conform to you because you have no power, because you're a random person in a random Californian state and nobody cares about you. Look, what has happened
is that just the echo chamber mentality, though, of their belief that, well, because I'm surrounded by people who all tell me the same thing,
hello
the rest
and welcome,
of the
my
country
friend.
must also feel
How may I
the same
help
way,
you on
because
this
of course
fine
they
day?
do. And anyone,
What are you hunting?
Anyone who disagrees
Never
is
mind.
just
I don't want to
outlier
know.
that we have to deal with.
Yeah, but the balance to that was people like Ricky Gervais at the award ceremonies when he was like, nobody cares about any of you. Don't you understand? We just want you to get your award and piss off. And what did they do? They fired him and they got someone else that would just tell them whatever they wanted to hear. And so it is 100%. They are wrapped up in their own. They never hear a contradictory opinion, and the exact opposite needs to be true. They need to be completely, utterly surrounded by their audience and faced with the consequences of if you actually disrespect the audience, it will negatively impact any money you make for any of your movies. And the only way you can do that is tie their wages to the success of the movies.
I'm going to get that with the BBC, that's for sure.
Well,
Don Blackbird says, welcome back, Drinker. Did you like the final round of the Red Bull World Championship? Put me to sleep. What teams and drivers do you support in F1? Cheers. I think everyone knew that Verstappen was going to win that one. It's like, it actually wasn't a particularly eventful race, but I was
Perhaps
just
I'll
happy
be seeing
to be
more
there
of you.
because we were sitting in the sun in Abu Dhabi with quite a few beers at our disposal, and it was all good, man. And we watched some very fast cars go zoom zoom, so I enjoyed it. I always had a stuff. Was that sorry?
Your hotel looked gorgeous when you posted that picture of like the beach.
Oh, it was great.
Everyone was like, "Wish I was there."
To go from Scotland in late November, where it's freezing, to that, it was just beautiful. It's exactly what we needed. But,
I've been looking for you.
Yeah, I always
got
liked
something
Nico
I'm supposed to
Hülkenberg.
deliver.
I always had a soft spot for him. You felt like the star that never quite got.
Looks like
shine.
that's it. Got to go.
Never quite got that podium place, and I've always
Everyone needs work, right?
It, but
I have good
wasn't
work
to
for
be
you
this time. So, never mind. Yeah, it's interesting watching Hamilton as well. They cannot get his fucking car sorted. It's like potentially, you've got a great driver with a great track record. You've got theoretically an amazing team with an amazing car, but like they can't get the two to match up. It's so weird. Apparently, he was just desperate to bin it at the end of this season. He's probably going to burn it or something. But yeah. Anyway, I'll stop prattling
That'd make
on
a great
that.
YouTube video.
Yeah, just destroying a $1 million F1 car.
Yes.
Robo96 also says, about Elon Musk, I'm sure some people will love that he's sticking a middle finger up at Disney, but could his attitudes be seen as a reckless business move that would just deter potential advertisers and investors? Yeah. I mean, he's the ultimate chaotic neutral, I suppose, but that's kind of how he does things.
Everything all right?
Do you have enough money to care?
You know you can afford a septum or two.
Pretty much, yeah.
I'm assuming everyone here, if Twitter was to die, would not be that upset.
I get over it.
Twitter's subscription model is actually going. I mean,
Got
has it
something
become
for just
profitable
about
yet
everybody in
after
here.
Elon's taken
Give a
over?
holler if you have any
I
questions.
would really miss that $4 a month that I get in revenue.
You're a
from
traveler,
Twitter.
correct?
You know, I
Have
don't
you
know how I
been
get
to
by
White
without
Run?
that. Kevin O'Neill says, "Evening, gents. So I
Wonderful.
saw -1 last
hadn't
night.
really hoped
That's a
to
Godzilla
run into
movie,
someone
and while
who'd been
I would
there.
certainly recommend it, the
My
mantle of best
daughter
Godzilla
Fura
movie
was
still
assigned
firmly
to White
rests in
Run
the
after
hands
she
of
joined the Imperial
1954's
Army.
Gojira.
I was
in my
hoping
opinion.
you might
A
have
high
met
bar
her.
to beat,
I haven't
but
heard from
fair.
her lately.
Wow, not the
I've
Roland Emmerich
tried
one?
talking to
Okay.
Captain Aldous, but he
Yeah,
hasn't
that's
been any help.
amazing.
Yeah.
I love how everyone was shooting at this monster the size of a skyscraper and no one could actually
Oh,
hit
that's
it.
very sweet of you.
Uncanny.
Anything you can find out from Captain Aldous
Mr.
would be
Taco
welcome
BT
news.
says, it seems Elon forgot what free market capitalism is. I don't think he has. That's the thing.
We
He
mostly
just doesn't
carry
care.
herbs and alchemical
I'm
ingredients.
not really
that
sure
sort of thing.
that a cartel, which is
Before the
effectively
war,
what the advertisers are
our
trying to
stock was
form,
mostly
is free
used for
market capitalism,
aromatic
but
use in homes.
that's a basic definitional
Yes.
dispute.
These days, we have more people like you coming in.
Mr. Luca
looking
says,
for
"Hey,
healing
Drinker,
and the
Mauler,
like.
and Platoon. Just wanted to say thanks for all your work
Take a look.
during these years when I was struggling with my mum. She died two weeks ago. Oh, I'm sorry, mate.
Oh,
All right, here, man.
But yeah, hopefully we could, I don't know, hopefully provide you with a few little laughs or a little bit of entertainment along the way. So yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. JS Pena says, hope Matt Smith doesn't appear in upcoming specials. Yeah, I think he's moved on
busy
to
with
better
House of the
things.
Dragon, so.
Yeah.
I mean, Tenant for me was the worst one to have back in the first place. So
He was
I
my
care more
favorite.
about- I care more about Tenant than Smith.
Cirrhosis of Liver says, hey, Critical Drinker, what are the panel's favorite actresses in terms of stellar acting ability, past or present, and which movies best exemplify those talents?
I don't know about acting ability, but mine would be Kate Beckinsale in Underworld.
I know your reasoning for this one.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
One of the shots is in the trailer,
Yeah.
so
You love the plot of those films, is what
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
she was very good in Van Helsing as well for similar reasons.
True.
I always like Jessica Biel in Blade Trinity in an
What?
otherwise shit movie. My God, she was.
Oh wait, we're
stacked.
just talking about hot women now.
Yeah. Well,
Obviously.
sorry, this brew took me down this road, so I'm going to finish it.
don't blame me.
I mean, okay, Mauler, fine. Let's be boring and talk about acting ability.
It's like this brew's the bigger. He led me down this one.
Yeah,
it's kinda shit.
I really, well, I'll give her this one, right? I really like Anya Taylor-Joy. I think she's a fantastic actress. She's very interesting. She's willing to take on more interesting and challenging roles. And yeah, I think I've never been disappointed with the performances that she's put in. And I hate the rumors that
One of my
she's apparently
favorite
going to
all-time
be
female-
in the MCU.
I'll
one
go
of my
with
favorite all-time female performances was Kathy Bates in Misery. I think that's an amazing performance.
That was good. She
I'll go
was.
with Olivia Colman in a lot of what she's been doing recently, be it some of the clips I've seen from The Crown, or what she did in The Father, or just any role that she's having to take. It's really cool to see someone who I only knew from comedy stuff, like in that Mitchell and Webb look and stuff.
That's what I was going to say. Don't you think that she plays the same character?
Don't
in
forget
everything?
me next time you need herbs.
Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
If you're talking about like upper class British lady, but like
Well,
to be fair,
Have you seen Hot Fuzz? Disprove.
Yeah,
She
the
was
Hot
pretty
Fuzz,
good.
gonna
Hot
say-
Fuzz, Peep Show, and The Crown are three quite different properties, I'd have said.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. There
A
are
long
very
time
big
ago.
differences anyway.
I was thinking like the things I mainly know her from is like Peep Show and was it Secret Invasion?
Again,
Like,
Peep Show would be
kind of
very
thing.
different.
Yeah.
Have you seen any of the things people have been referencing yet?
I've not seen The Crown.
Have you seen The Crown or The Father, The Favorite?
I've seen Hot Fuzz a long time ago.
Yeah, but if you've seen Hot Fuzz and Peep Show, she's completely different in those two.
Well, the main things that I'd like can reference
if you're interested,
recently
traveler.
would have been Secret Invasion and Peep Show. And she's kind of the same in that.
Good God, what are you talking about? How is she the same in Peep Show and Secret Invasion?
Yes.
No.
It's a
in
tape.
Peep Show, she's like a normal woman who's just getting along with her day in the office, sort of thing. In Secret Invasion, she's like a psychopathic British officer.
In Peep Show, I could 100% see her just like assassinating the person next to her and just be like, "Yeah, I don't care about you. Bye."
I have no idea how to respond to that. My submission for super hot lady, I guess. I'm gonna do that too, right? Like, come on.
Do it.
Unless we have specific business, I'm not interested.
I'll go with Jennifer Connelly, even though that should have been Drinker's suggestion, to be honest with you.
I mean, she is pretty hot, yeah. She
In
still is,
everything.
actually.
That's still the way
Still
we're
is.
I was gonna say, I would still date her now.
Her and Selma Hayek, like, god damn. Some women just age like fine wine. It's glorious. Anyway, I'm going to get sidetracked with that one. Like, I'll wait until after the stream to deal with that situation. JK Fozel says, have you guys seen the Lady Ballers trailer? I get serious Ringer vibes from it. Hopefully it's at least funny, if not a good movie. Well, they're certainly stirring up the hornet's nest with that movie.
It's whether or not they have more than one joke, I think, would be the tell. Because I understand why they're doing it, and yes, it's absolutely right that someone finally starts to make fun of the sheer insanity that is men and women's sport. That's fine. But for a comedy movie, you do need more than just that joke. And I kind of suspect there's not going to be much more than that. But, you know, open-minded, I will watch it when it comes out.
Cirrhosis of Liver says, hello, Disparu.
No lollygagging.
Which show do you think was the better comedy, Robin Hood or Robin Hood Men in Tights? Also, tell the panel about the bunny rabbit scene.
I think Robin Hood was easily the better comedy, even though it was unintentional, because that is the most deranged thing I've ever seen in my life, except for possibly the next Robin Hood thing that I want to review over Christmas, which I found while trying to find Robin Hood. So,
be careful.
Look, imagine you're just watching a Robin Hood show, and it's like, it's not the actual Robin Hood, but it's based around sort of a load of people. They live in a block of flats, and for some reason they decided to rob everyone else because they're too lazy and can't be bothered to go to work. And they just think that everyone else owes them a living, and then they get arrested. And rather than going to prison or jail, instead a rabbit walks into their room and starts to electrocute them with a cattle prod for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And the only reason the show ever gives for this is if you told anybody that a pink rabbit electrocuted with a cattle prod, the judge wouldn't believe you. And that is Robin Hood. And they escaped this hell, and they never got rearrested by the police. They just let them off for no reason. They're like, oh, you've escaped from prison, but that's fine. You know, we're gonna forget about that and just let you carry on with your life of crime, because for some reason a pink rabbit electrocuted you.
Reminds me of the end of Indiana Jones 5.
Yeah, they actually escaped by sticking tampons in a guard's mouth. I mean, I don't make the rules. This is just what happened in the show. This is essentially Robin Hood morphed from a very strange television show to what I can only assume was a very weird fantasy by certain creators.
Fair play. I don't even know what to say to respond to that.
I don't think there is anything. It's a very weird Canadian TV show.
Master of Puppets says, Hail Drinker, why do you think TV seasons are so short now? Is it A, short attention spans, B, writers can't write more than 1 or 2 decent sentences, or C, stupidly high budgets? Also, as a Kiwi, sorry for Taika Waititi. Yeah, we don't forgive you for him, but as for TV shows these days, I think partly high budgets, that's definitely a big aspect of it. Yeah, it's really difficult to stretch that out over 22 episodes like you used to get. And also the streaming model kind of does away with this idea of really long seasons because people get bored and they just want to move on to the next thing. So yeah, 10 seems to be the optimum. You get ones that are 8 episodes. So yeah, I guess those are the 2 main reasons as far as I understand it. I don't know if the panel has got anything else.
Got an impression that they prestige television, like at one point, when it first started happening, you know, like Band of Brothers, it was like, oh, this is special. This is something that's high budget and very, very specifically crafted, and it is as long as it needed to be, not as long as is mandated for television shows. You're like, oh shit, okay, this is serious. And that's how I felt they were trying to package a lot of the Disney ones or the Marvel ones, whatever. This sort of like, this is a TV show, but of a new era. And it was like, that's true. It is a very new era. Like, they're shockingly bad. And they only recently come to learn that they need a showrunner on their TV shows. Which is fucking
It's so good to see you.
I agree with this one as well. It's not episodic
I had
TV
you
anymore.
figured for
It's,
a name.
big
I think you'll
overarching
appreciate
plot,
this.
You know, plots,
yeah, it's like the
colorful
serialization, right? Like,
Was it Twin Peaks? Was Twin Peaks the first show to do that, where instead of just episodic start, middle, and end of a new episode every week with its own little story, they had a big story arc going throughout?
No, you probably had things like The Prisoner from back in like the 60s or 70s. Like
it was a gradual
serialized.
change because a lot of different shows were experimenting with it. Like even Buffy was doing story arcs that were sometimes over several episodes instead of just resetting on the formula. I know that House, like the first 3 seasons were all formulaic, and then they start trying to shake it up because you start to get like stale and stuff. And yeah, there's a whole mixture. But Twin Peaks was definitely a game changer.
Yeah, I mean, I know one thing that Twin Peaks definitely changed is it got rid of that whole victim of the week culture, whereby there'd be a detective show and somebody would die, and then everything would wrap up by the end. They decide, well, let's just have one major victim and make her the focal point of the story.
Well, one of the best representations of that, I would say, is a Supernatural, where you can watch, I think it was season 1, you can like watch episode 1, and then 1 in the middle, and then the end, and you've caught all of the major story. The rest of it is Monster of the Week with the boys.
The X-Files did something similar, but in terms of like pure serialization, weren't most of the really old, like the original Doctor Who's multi-episode serialized
Seville Stentor
stories
has a grasp of magical theory that I would never have expected.
It was a mixture, like I think
even
not
Genesis
of the Daleks was the first one to do that, but it was definitely an early one, and that was when it was just a whole season devoted to one overarching story. So yeah, it was definitely being done back then.
But I think it comes from the attitude that movies are superior to television. And I actually think, because I went off movies way before most people did, and thought that TV was better. And I think that TV went downhill when the budgets became so big that movie people got interested in them. And they just don't have the intention span or intelligence or the skill to make a TV plot. They can't make one that goes as long as other stuff does. But because movies were seen as this prestigious thing, you know, we can get movie actors in and everything, they drag down television to the level of movies. Tag? And so now they physically can't make a series which lasts 22 episodes and be entertaining. They can only make 10 or 6 or 4 because their ideas they're not deep enough to last longer.
But you still like movies though, right?
Some, but very rarely. Like I may like 2 or 3 movies a year.
How did you do that?
Do you watch indie movies at all?
I don't blame you for that.
Pardon me.
Disprue, do you watch indie movies or just Hollywood stuff?
No, I gave up on movies a long time ago. I'm on about like maybe
my papa says
10 or
I'm
15 years ago I stopped watching movies largely
just like
and
him.
started watching TV series.
He says it means smart.
It's why most of my channel is more TV series.
What? I mean, there's a lot of shit TV.
Nakas!
Oh yeah. Stuff. Remember, like the Batwoman seasons weren't exactly short.
What are you saying? That wasn't shit. They were amazing. Every single minute.
But even in shit TV, it's like part of it now at least is because I can make better videos out of TV series than movies. But what I mean is like I've watched all of The Flash and Supergirl. I've watched a lot of terrible television.
Welcome to the center. It would seem so.
Movies are far more of a commitment.
Gold solves
like
most
going
problems,
to the cinemas
doesn't
to actually
it?
watch them and stuff. So.
Why, hello. Here to buy.
I felt like I lost a lot more going
Have you
to
met
the
my
cinema to
dear
watch
brother
bad movies than
Erica?
bad television in
The
first
man's
place.
as trustworthy
And so
as
it
a
was going to
Khajiit
be-
goldmonger.
I was going to judge them more harshly than I would bad television. But even so, I think that the big destruction of streaming series came when it got the budgets to actually attract movie people to them.
Yes, I haven't got
and
all
I think
day.
about Secret Invasion. Like, Secret Invasion should never have been made. I don't know why it cost so much money. I don't know how it cost so much money. But loads of people go, well, it would have made a better movie.
Speak.
Why can't you make
Divines
it
bless you.
If you could make 90 minutes of television, why couldn't you make longer versions
you are
of
the
it?
one saved the
Except
fire
for the
festival.
sole reason that
I
people made it
remember.
don't have an idea that could last that
I
long.
need to ask you to stop. Can't
I have
say
a
I've
question
heard
for
of any
Platoon,
laws
because I know
against
you've done a lot of
whatever
stuff on
that is
Ahsoka,
you're
and
doing.
With the Obi-Wan
But
show,
I'll
there
lock
was
you up
actually a
if I
fan
have
edit
to.
where a guy basically edited it down,
I've
and
got-
apparently it was
If it
significantly
isn't
better. I
the
haven't seen
Slayer
it.
of the
But do you
Glenmoran
think, because there's so
witches,
much fluff in
how
Ahsoka,
can
do
I
you think that
assist
could
you,
be edited
companion?
down into a watchable movie, or is it just too shit?
As a general rule for any Disney Star Wars show, if you cut most of it, it will improve. So I can believe that that's the case.
You're not going to make the actors any better, though. You're not going to
No, that's
give
true.
Sabine any emotion.
I don't know with Ahsoka whether or not there is even enough in the underlying plot to have a short, concise show that would improve over what we got. It would be quicker, so that's an improvement because we wouldn't suffer for quite so long. But you're still going to be stuck with the basic plot essentials, which is map to Thrawn, going to other galaxy via whales to meet zombie troopers and witches and a giant smurf who makes mistakes and tells everyone that he's a genius. Like, if those are the essentials of the show, there's not really much you can do to fix it, I don't think.
Well, I've heard Filoni fans say, and this includes Star Wars Theory to some extent, he said that it's the setup season. It is the prologue season, so the good stuff is to come.
It's the prolapse season.
The prologue for what?
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's if we had a whole season to come of Thrawn versus Ahsoka, I'd be like, it's gonna be shit.
Coin or two for
Thrawn is awful as a character. The only thing I know about Thrawn is from Ahsoka, but his character was awful. He basically spent the entire series losing to go, oh, I'm actually amazing. It's like, what?
We loved the nuclear grade cope that he displayed. It was genuinely impressive.
To be honest with you guys, if we get him again, which we obviously will, like I will look forward to the meme of him constantly coping. It's like funny as hell.
I did that. I did that where I took the downfall scene where Hitler's generals are announcing to him all these disasters that are happening around Berlin, and then I cut to Thrawn, and Thrawn said something like, "These are acceptable losses." And then the Russians are like 5 miles from the Reichstag, and he says, like, victory is mine. You know, just yeah.
But that's
what he's like.
I come from like the era of, you know, you've got Buffy, you've got Stargate, you've got Star Trek. There's so many series that used to go on for 22 episodes, and now these people can't even create a story over 6 episodes and make it make sense. I just think it shows that you need a lot.
If you brought that back, if you made a high budget, say 22, a market for an episode.
I don't think you need a high budget, because if you look at like Star Trek, they made like the sets of the ship and then they just reuse them. It just requires actual talented writers. But my thing has always been, it's the people making the show. They don't actually have the same morality as the audience, so they physically